He called me Marla the Mop once, said it during a team lunch like it was a compliment. She just cleans up after the rest of us. Real quiet, real efficient. Everyone laughed. I smiled, the kind of tight-lipped smile that keeps your molars from cracking under pressure. Then I went back to sifting through 184 flagged transactions the finance team had marked reviewed without actually opening. I knew how this place ran. 7 years in compliance teaches you the real hierarchy. Executives make messes, middle managers hide them, and people like me, we erase the fingerprints. Every late patch, every quiet override, every just sign this, we're out of time memo. I sanitized it all. Converted it into digestible summaries for external review, which is corporate for a priestly confession no one actually reads but pretends saves their soul. The kicker, I was good at it. Too good. Nobody ever asked how the sausage got clean. Just clapped when it didn't poison anyone. Like clockwork, every March, I'd produce a glowing audit report the board could wave like a trophy while they popped champagne in glass-walled meeting rooms. I'd be downstairs with a lint roller, cleaning up the glitter. And hey, since you're already here, listening to a woman unravel after 7 years of being invisible, click the damn subscribe button. 90% of y'all binge these stories without ever hitting like or follow. You don't even need to write a comment, just tap the thing. It tells the team I'm not screaming into the void. And believe me, we need that motivation more than the CFO needs his second house in Boca Raton. Anyway, where was I? Oh, right, the audit, the big one. This year's was coming early, thanks to some regulatory reshuffling, and I was already working weekends 2 months out. Not because anyone told me to, hell, no one even knew what I did with the server logs. I did it because if I didn't, the whole company would go down in flames, and I'd still be the one blamed for not holding the fire extinguisher just right. I kept lists, not dramatic ones, just tidy Excel sheets with tabs like unpatched items, low risk-ish, and exceptions signed by people who shouldn't. Nothing illegal, just aggressively negligent. And every quarter, I'd summarize what needed fixing, and someone higher up would lean over my report, cross out half the rows, and mutter, "That's not material." Material meant whatever won't tank my bonus. Then came Miles. Miles Dam Whitaker, new VP hired from some other sinking ship. He walked in like he owned the floor, all shiny loafers and LinkedIn catchphrases, told everyone we were entering a new era of lean compliance. First week, he posted a photo of his whiteboard to Slack. It said, "Automate, delegate, dominate." I knew then my days were numbered. I didn't even exist in that equation. He canceled our one-on-ones. He stopped attending the weekly risk reviews, told me just email me the important stuff, so I did. I sent 3 escalating emails about a cluster of high-risk vulnerability scans that hadn't run in 6 weeks due to a licensing issue. No reply. Then a calendar invite for an emergency sit-down. Canceled. Then I walked into his glass box of an office one morning and said, "We've got a serious gap in our prep for the audit." He cut me off. Not with a raised hand, with a chuckle. "Marla," he said, like I was someone's elderly aunt trying to plug a microwave into a toaster, "don't get emotional, this is business." 2 weeks before the audit, that same day at 4:45 p.m., I got the calendar invite from HR. Subject line, organizational changes. They called it a cost efficiency measure. My role was redundant, no severance, just a printout, a shrug, and a cardboard box. I took the box. I packed up the trinkets, my coffee mug, the ficus that only grew sideways, a pen I liked. I left the sticky notes. Left the audit checklist pinned to my wall. Left the corporate-branded fleece blanket I'd gotten in 21 for Employee Appreciation Month, which they canceled halfway through due to budget cuts. But what I didn't leave was access. You see, Miles didn't ask to revoke my credentials right away. Said I had until Friday to hand over anything critical. He assumed I'd prep the usual sanitized report and shuffle out like a good little compliance elf. But Miles didn't understand what I did, and he definitely didn't understand what I kept. The day Miles showed up, the break room suddenly had coconut water. That should have been my first clue we were in for a cultural extinction event. HR wheeled in one of those feel-good welcome our new leadership carts with gluten-free muffins and little branded mouse pads that said disrupt, optimize, scale. I remember staring at mine and thinking, great, now even my mouse is going to get gaslit. Miles Whitaker strutted into the Monday morning all hands wearing a blazer with elbow patches and a smartwatch he kept glancing at like it owed him money. He introduced himself with a TED talk voice and a salesman's jawline. "We're entering a new phase," he said, walking slow like a preacher. "We're going to cut the fat, automate, delegate, empower." The interns clapped. I sipped my coffee and imagined deleting his access card by accident. By noon, he had already scheduled a mandatory vision sync meeting, which consisted of him standing in front of a giant screen showing 3 circles labeled speed, savings, and scale, then asking, "Which one are you?" Nobody knew what the hell he was talking about, but we all nodded like trained seals in a corporate aquarium. He canceled my weekly one-on-one with no explanation. Just an auto-reply from his assistant that said, "Miles is focusing on high-level strategic integrations," which I guess meant spinning around in his chair while he waits for someone else to do the work. He started delegating all compliance prep to a kid named Jared, who had once asked me if audit was an acronym. Jared now had access to systems he didn't know how to pronounce. The man printed reports in landscape because he thought it made them look faster. And still, I tried. God help me, I tried. I sent the weekly risk briefings. Every Monday, detailed, color-coded, with a summary for execs and raw logs for the tech team. I flagged the skipped vulnerability scans, the overdue third-party patch verification, the anomalies in the timestamping of one of our core logbooks that looked suspiciously like manual tampering. No response. I escalated. I looped in legal. I even walked one memo down to his office myself, slid it across his glass desk like a divorce petition. He didn't even look at it, just said, I'm streamlining. We don't need to get caught up in every little blip. We're running lean now. Lean, that word, like it made incompetence sexy. I walked out and updated my spreadsheet. Tab 19, red flags ignored Q1. The thing was, it wasn't just one or two little gaps. It was a pattern, an erosion. The kind of systemic corner cutting that, come audit time, doesn't just slap you with a warning, it strips your license, freezes your contracts, triggers mandatory client disclosures. We had 14 unresolved action items from the previous audit cycle. 12 of them were mine to track. I'd been working on resolutions for 10. The other two were buried in Miles' inbox, where he'd marked them FYI and moved on to filming a motivational video in front of the espresso machine. And let's talk about that video. Oh, video? Compliance isn't about rules, he said, gesturing with an oat milk latte like he was launching a rocket to Mars. It's about mindset. We don't react, we anticipate. I nearly choked on my microwaved oatmeal. Anticipate what? A federal audit team kicking down the door like it's a drug raid? By the second week, he'd replaced the secure access request form with a Google Sheet. Publicly editable. I'm not kidding. I stared at it like it was a cursed object. Anyone could have modified credentials. You could have added admin access Dracula count. I brought it up, he laughed. It's temporary. We're iterating. Like we're a startup selling beard oil, not a regulated institution with legally binding data retention obligations. I began documenting everything, quietly. Every ignored risk, every deleted calendar invite. Every time I saw him waving off actual, documented protocol with a smirk and a buzzword. I didn't yell, I didn't storm out, I just made folders, labeled them clearly, uploaded backups to encrypted cloud storage, my insurance policy. Then he moved the audit date forward by 2 weeks, said we'd look more proactive if we invited the regulators early. I stared at him across the conference table, wondering if it was a bit like maybe Ashton Kutcher was about to jump out of the ficus and scream punked. But no, it was real. Miles was optimizing us straight into the audit from hell, and no one was going to stop him. The last straw came wrapped in a manila folder labeled for your review, which was funny, because Miles hadn't reviewed a damn thing since the day he learned what the word synergy meant. Inside were printouts of 3 incidents I'd escalated twice already. One showed our internal scan results flagged with high severity patch deferred. Another was an alert suppression chain from the endpoint detection system. Some genius in IT had silenced warnings during a Saturday rollout to reduce noise. And the third, a log showing a data access request processed under an expired admin credential. Just sitting there, time-stamped, unaudited. I walked it straight to his office. No email this time. No Slack ping. No polite just circling back. I knocked, waited. He didn't look up when I entered, just waved a hand like I was the janitor. I need to walk you through this, I said, placing the folder in front of him. We have unaddressed critical alerts. The auditors will have full log access. He slid the folder back without opening it. Marla, relax, I blinked. This isn't about relaxing. It's about liability. If this comes up, he finally looked up. Eyes heavy with the smugness of someone who thinks due diligence is a personality flaw. Don't get emotional, he said, holding up his hands like I was about to throw a chair. This is business, that sentence, that tone, like I was being dramatic for noticing the house was on fire while he was busy selling tickets for the tour. I don't know what showed on my face, but something in his expression changed, just a flicker of calculation. He leaned back, steepled his fingers like a cartoon villain, and said, Actually, I've been meaning to talk to you. Next morning, I was summoned to HR. A woman named Lindsay, who smelled like vanilla yogurt and denial, met me with a corporate death smile. Due to recent restructuring, she said, handing me a typed sheet with my name spelled wrong, your role has been deemed redundant. Effective immediately? I asked, voice steady. She shook her head. Friday. That gives you 3 days for knowledge transfer. No severance, no reference. Just a line about appreciation for past contributions and a brochure about mental health resources. I stared at the grainy stock photo on the front, some woman doing yoga in a field, and wondered how many times it had been reused for layoffs, divorces, and midlife crises. Miles never showed his face. Sent a 2-line email that ended with, wishing you all the best. I didn't reply. I just packed up my desk. Slowly, deliberately. I took down the laminated copy of the regulatory checklist I'd posted above my monitor for 5 years. Rolled up the poster from our last clean audit, the one the execs had forced us to pose in front of like we just won a Nobel Prize. Unpin the email printout from our legal counsel that began, to avoid exposure, we must ensure all remediation steps are thoroughly documented. I could feel eyes on me from the open plan cubicles. No one said a word. Jared, bless him, offered to help carry my box. I declined. Back at my desk, I opened the compliance portal one last time. My credentials still worked, full access. Miles hadn't revoked a thing. He thought I'd go quietly. That I'd spend my last 3 days smoothing over the handoff, drafting a shiny PDF titled Audit Prep Summary Marla style, complete with sanitized bullet points and graphs that made rot look like polish. Instead, I opened the server archive. Years of logs, backdated fixes, suppressed alerts, quiet changes that should have triggered full internal investigations. All of it tidy, indexed, searchable, like a boneyard organized by dental records. I didn't rage, didn't cry, I just clicked, created a new folder, named it Originals Unaltered, dragged and dropped. No edits, no summaries, no euphemisms. Then I emailed the audit liaison. Per my exit responsibilities, I've uploaded the most recent data exports to the review portal. That was it, one sentence. By the end of that day, I'd transferred everything I needed to. The cardboard box under my desk stayed empty. I didn't take the mousepad, didn't take the mug. I didn't need mementos. I had the truth and a ticking clock that night. I sat on the floor of my apartment in sweatpants older than my last promotion, a half glass of boxed Merlot sweating onto a coaster I stole from the company holiday party 3 years ago. The kind that says something passive-aggressive like cheers to teamwork, while you cry in the stall between meetings. My laptop sat open in front of me, glowing like a moral crossroads. The login screen for the external backup I'd created 2 years ago, the encrypted one, not the company archive. Mine, built slow and silent over endless nights and long weekends no one thanked me for, backups of backups, an audit trail of every dirty little favor I ever did to keep our clean compliance rating intact. I entered the password. My fingers didn't hesitate. Inside, a digital mausoleum of corporate sins, tab after tab, every discrepancy I'd ever neutralized under executive pressure, every override I'd implemented after a director's gentle, whispered this can't leave the room. Every time I was told to downgrade a risk rating to medium because high would delay a launch. Every damn audit note I rewrote in plain language so the brass wouldn't have to Google what cross-tenant access escalation meant. It hit me all at once. None of them deserved my silence. For 7 years, I'd been the firewall they never knew they had. But a firewall doesn't beg to stay lit, and I wasn't going to keep pretending they were worth the protection. Still, I wasn't going to go full scorched earth. That's not how I move. Burning the bridge is dramatic, but booby-trapping it, that's an art form. I composed one final email to Miles and HR, polite, corporate, neutered on the surface. Subject, final compliance handover notes body. Hi Miles, Lindsay, per our conversation earlier this week. I've completed my transition tasks and uploaded the relevant documentation and data exports to the audit review portal. Please let me know if there's anything else required of me before end of day Friday. Wishing you continued success during the upcoming audit cycle. Best, Marla. I even added a smiley in the signature. Not the emoji kind, just the colon and parenthesis. Subtle, unsettling. Then I attached a link. The folder, Originals Unaltered. No explanation, no description, just there. Waiting, the kind of gift that looks harmless until you open it and realize it's a live grenade disguised as a PDF. After that, I updated my LinkedIn, not with a bitter rant or a New Beginnings humble brag. Just a short post. After 7 years with company name, I'm taking time to recalibrate. Grateful for the lessons. Open to new opportunities where integrity isn't negotiable. Liked by 73 people, including one former auditor. I closed the laptop, drained the rest of my wine, and finally, let the weight slide off my shoulders. The kind of weight you don't know you're carrying until you're standing barefoot in your living room realizing you've been keeping an entire corporation legally viable through sheer stubborn decency. Let them run the audit. Let Miles swagger into that conference room thinking it's just another rubber-stamped compliance party with coffee and catered danishes. Let them open the logs and see everything. No summaries, no filters, no me. Just the raw, unedited truth piled up like bones under the floorboards they built their bonuses on. I didn't blow the whistle. I just stopped erasing the blood. My last day felt like a funeral no one showed up to. Friday morning. I walked into the office at 7:03 a.m. sharp, same time I always did. Not out of loyalty, out of muscle memory. The lights were still off on most of the floor. The air had that weird, sterile hush that only exists in carpeted places where people pretend ethics live. I sat at my desk and stared at the blinking cursor in the audit summary template. The same damn one I'd built 5 years ago, and I realized no one in leadership could explain our compliance process without using the word vibes. Normally, by this point, I'd have filled in 5 sections, rewritten 2, and hand-fed bullet points to the executive team like soft food for baby birds. Instead, I hit delete, blank page. Then I closed the document altogether. They wanted handover, they were going to get it. I opened the system log archive and made a fresh pull, last 18 months, no filters. Then another, administrative access logs. Then another, patch implementation timestamps. Every category I'd ever been told to streamline for readability, I yanked it in raw, metadata intact, audit trails untouched. No red lines, no highlights. Just the digital equivalent of opening the fridge and dumping everything onto the kitchen floor. I zipped it all into a single encrypted package and titled it plainly, FY24 Compliance Export Full, not even a passive-aggressive file name. Just honest. Honest is what they'd always claimed to want. Transparency builds trust, right? Let's test that. Around 11:40 a.m., Lindsay from HR popped by with the strained cheerfulness of someone trying to pretend she hasn't just finished Googling legal exposure post-termination. She handed me a little envelope, final paycheck, printed thank you note, and a $10 Starbucks gift card like I was a part-time barista, not the reason this company hadn't been shut down 3 audits ago. Everything good for your handover? She chirped. Uploaded to the secure portal, I said, not looking up. Same one we always use. Credentials still active through midnight per the exit policy. Oh, great, she lingered, trying to make small talk, then gave up and slunk away. At 3:12 p.m., I received a thank you for your service Slack message from Miles. It had a confetti emoji. I didn't respond. Instead, I pinged the audit liaison, external, impartial, someone I'd worked with for years and who never once called my work overkill. Just a simple note. Hi, Rebecca. I've uploaded the requested data exports for this cycle. No summary this time, as the leadership team has taken ownership of final interpretation. Let me know if you have any access issues. Best, Marla. No emotion, no shade, just truth delivered cold. At 4:55 p.m., I shut down my machine. The office buzzed with early weekend energy, junior staff tapping out, Slack channels turning into gift parties. Jared waved from his desk, clearly thinking we'd both dodged something. Poor kid didn't realize he was sitting on a landmine labeled Regulatory Noncompliance Level 5. I walked to the elevator carrying nothing. Not a box, not a mug, not a framed photo of an office team building hike that left me with a sprained ankle and 2 weeks of paperwork backlog. Just me, clean. By 5:15, I was outside. The cold hit my face like absolution. They had no idea what was sitting in that audit portal. No idea that, for the first time in the company's history, no one had filtered the truth. Let the logs speak. Let the timestamps sing. Let the system try to explain itself without me smoothing its jagged, broken edges. I didn't make a scene, didn't slam any doors. I just walked away and let the rot echo behind me. The audit team arrived Monday morning like they always did, briefcases, branded water bottles, and that surgically neutral tone that says, "We're not here to destroy you unless you deserve it." I wasn't there, of course, but I'd worked with them for years. I knew their rhythm, their playbook, their tells. I could practically hear the polite throat clearing when things started to go sideways. By 9:17 a.m., they were already emailing IT, not with questions, with flags. It started small, a few inconsistencies in the patch deployment logs. Expected completion dates versus actual timestamps. A handful of skipped entries where systems had mysteriously updated without an origin trace. Miles probably told them it was a logging bug or a time zone hiccup. Classic dodge. Then they hit the suppressed alerts. The external endpoint monitoring system showed 3 critical alerts that never triggered escalations. Why? Because someone, Jared, probably without realizing, had unchecked the notify box under the alert severity threshold settings. An amateur mistake. When I'd corrected before, quietly, every time. Except this time I didn't. By noon they were no longer smiling. One of the auditors, Rebecca, the one I'd sent my final note to, paused outside Miles' office and asked for a closed-door meeting. I can only imagine his face when she pulled up the raw logs and scrolled, and scrolled, and scrolled. Timestamp anomalies. Login sessions that didn't align with badge access records. System reboots during blackout windows. Patch mark deployed that had no corresponding confirmation logs. Backdated approvals tied to terminated contractors. Each item on its own might have been brushed aside. A shrug, a glitch, a human error, but together they looked like what they were, a company operating on duct tape and denial with no adult supervision in the room for the last 2 months. The door stayed shut for 47 minutes. People noticed. When it finally creaked open, Miles stepped out looking like he'd seen God, and God was holding a clipboard. His collar was damp, his usual smirk replaced by the blank stare of a man who just realized the parachute wasn't packed. He didn't speak to anyone, just walked straight to IT. I imagine he was trying to find out what I'd uploaded. He wouldn't find it. I hadn't titled anything whistleblower or red flag file. I didn't leave a note that said gotcha in Comic Sans. It was all just there, the truth, undeniable, unedited, unexplained. By 3:00 p.m., the internal Slack channels began buzzing. Anyone know why legal just locked down the GRC folders? Did someone leak something? Why is audit still here? They were supposed to leave at 2:30, they didn't. Instead, they requested full system access logs, not summaries, not dashboards, raw logs. That's when legal got involved. I was at home, curled on the couch with a blanket and a bowl of oversalted popcorn, watching a documentary about haunted lighthouses. My phone buzzed with a message from Jared. Hey, did you hear what's going on at HQ? I didn't reply. Let him stew. Let them all stew. I knew what was going on. I knew what they'd find next. The fake remediation sign-offs, the completed fixes that never ran, the compliance reports padded with meaningless jargon to make oversight agencies think something was being done. All of it. All the things I used to clean up, wipe down, polish into pretty graphs, and now they were sitting naked on a digital autopsy table while a team of auditors poked and prodded, asking the one question that undoes empires: who approved this? Miles had no answers because I had always been the answer. And now I was gone. The silence he'd mistaken for submission was the sound of the fuse burning. By Tuesday morning, Miles was in full panic mode, and from what I heard, it was artless. No cool executive crisis handling. No let's take this offline damage control. Just red-faced scrambling, like a raccoon caught trying to hotwire a Prius. He started by calling the junior staff into the war room, Jared, Priya, couple interns who still thought the audit was a cool learning opportunity. Slapped the whiteboard with a dry erase marker like it owed him money and barked, "What did Marla leave behind?" Jared blinked. Logs? Just logs?" Miles asked, already sweating through his performance fiber blazer. Yeah, Priya added, scrolling through her emails. She uploaded them to the audit portal. Said they were unedited exports. Seemed pretty straightforward. That's the thing about telling the truth. When you're used to lies, it looks like sabotage. Meanwhile, Rebecca from audit had moved from puzzled to protocol mode. The kind of calm that comes right before a regulatory thunderclap. She made a phone call, not to IT, not to Miles, to the licensing board. Because once certain thresholds of systemic negligence are hit, especially with timestamp proof and documented suppression, there's no room for discretion. No space to circle back or reframe the narrative. By policy, the audit team is obligated to report the findings immediately to the governing body, which is exactly what she did. That's when internal legal stopped playing ping pong with IT and dove into full triage. Emergency meetings. Slack channels turned private. NDAs recirculated like candy during a dental conference. They couldn't spin it, they couldn't hide it, because I hadn't left a single breadcrumb of subjectivity. No interpretations, no summaries, no commentary that could be argued in a hearing. Just raw logs with metadata, chained entries, automated timestamps, and the cruel finality of objective record keeping. The kind of thing that doesn't say cover up, it just shows it, frame by frame. At 1:22 p.m., I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, then another, then a third. I let them pile up while I boiled water for tea, Earl Grey, double-bagged. Good stuff I'd been saving for a moment when peace didn't feel like a mistake. I settled onto the couch, wrapped in my favorite sweatshirt, the one with the hole in the sleeve and the coffee stain shaped like Ohio, and hit play on the voicemails. First one, Jared, rambling, nervous. "Hey Marla, do you have a minute? I think there's a misunderstanding, or maybe, I don't know, they're asking what you included, and I just said it was logs, but they're kind of freaking out, and I figured. Like maybe if you delete." Second, Miles, less ramble, more terror. "Marla, this is Miles Whitaker. I know things ended abruptly, but we may need some clarity around what you submitted for the audit. We're dealing with questions. If you could just call me back, that'd be appreciated." Delete. Third, legal. Cold, terse. "Miss Hughes, this is Amanda Pollack from the Office of General Counsel. Please return our call regarding your final data submission. We'd like to clarify a few points to ensure full understanding before regulatory delete." I took a slow sip of tea. Let the steam rise. Let it settle over the quiet. They were learning what I already knew: truth is heavy, especially when you're not used to carrying it. I didn't sabotage them. I didn't tamper or twist. I simply stopped polishing their mess. And now the board, so proud of its lean ops and digital innovation, staring down the barrel of license suspension. Millions in contracts on hold. Clients already drafting exit memos with phrases like material misrepresentation and pending compliance review. I set the mug down, picked up a book, turned the page. Somewhere across town, a fire alarm was metaphorically blaring. And me, I was warm and dry, and finally off the hook for everyone else's sins. The call came at 8:41 p.m. Not some polite business hours email, not a carefully worded text. A direct call to my personal cell, one I'd never given him. I guess someone in HR panicked and coughed it up after enough shouting, and legal fumes filled the building like a gas leak. I let it ring until the last second. Then I answered like I'd just come out of a warm bath. "Hello, Marla." His voice cracked on the second syllable. It's Miles." Silence stretched like an old rubber band. "Can we talk?" I said nothing, just waited, let the silence do the work. He filled it the way cowards do, sloppy, desperate, defensive. "There seems to be some confusion about what exactly you submitted to the audit portal. They're saying things are inconsistent. They're raising red flags that." He took a breath. "Listen, I don't want to play games here. I need to know, what did you give them?" I sipped my tea, set it down, and answered with the kind of clarity you can only earn after years of being underestimated. "Exactly what was on the server," I said. Calm, even, no triumph in my tone, just the sound of clean hands. No edits, no commentary, just the raw system exports. He was quiet for a full 5 seconds. I heard the faint creak of a chair. The sound of a man falling inward. He stopped himself. You didn't include any summaries? No, that wasn't requested. You didn't. Arla, you didn't explain the anomalies. The patches, the escalation delays I cut in. Those were in the logs, but they don't understand their auditors, Miles. They understand just fine. Silence again. He was unraveling now, one fraying thread at a time. You didn't warn me, he said, almost a whisper. I flagged the issues, I replied, multiple times, via email. In person, you waved them off. That's not what I meant, I let him twist. He finally said it. Soft. Dull, you stopped cleaning up after me. I let the words sit there between us like a corpse on a conference table. You assumed I would always polish it, I said. That I'd do what I always did, filter the mess, make it palatable. Let you take credit for nothing going wrong. His breath hitched. He sounded like he was staring at the edge of a cliff with no guardrail. They're talking about revoking the license, he muttered. The board's calling emergency sessions. Clients are suspending contracts until we explain things. Legal's saying there could be exposure. That we might have, he trailed off, but I knew the words. Fraud, negligence, material misrepresentation. They're trying to pin it on me, he said, voice hollow, saying I failed to maintain oversight. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say, just air between us. Real, heavy, undeniable air. You never broke protocol, he said, half to himself. Nope. You didn't leak anything. You didn't doctor anything. You just didn't protect us. Nope. Why now? I paused. Let the moment breathe, because I was tired, Miles. Tired of shielding men who don't read. Tired of being the invisible guardrail you slam into at full speed, then blame for scratching your paint. He said my name again, soft, almost pleading. Marla, I hung up, not out of spite, not for revenge, just because the call was over. My part in his delusion was done. And somewhere, miles away in a glass box of an office, a man who once smirked at my emotional tone was finally feeling the full weight of his own signature on 1,000 little shortcuts. I didn't destroy him. He just ran out of me. By Friday, it was no longer whispers in Slack threads or circling back emails in legal. It was news. Real news. Headlines. Regional tech firm faces compliance license revocation after audit uncovers systemic negligence. One outlet got their hands on the board minutes. Another published excerpts from the audit findings. No spin, no PR scrub, just brutal facts laid bare in bullet points. Failure to maintain required documentation. Inconsistent patch verification processes. Evidence of data suppression and backdated approvals. Internal audit summaries deemed materially misleading. Every line was like a piano dropped on the rooftop of Miles' LinkedIn empire. You could practically hear the endorsements for strategic vision and team leadership vanish in real time. By noon, 3 of our biggest clients had announced a temporary suspension of engagement pending investigation. Translation, we're done with you, don't call. Each suspension meant millions. SLA penalties, reputation death. Procurement departments don't issue second chances, they blacklist. Then came the board meeting, not scheduled, summoned, an emergency vote, private Zoom session. One of the directors couldn't mute fast enough and was overheard saying it's either him or the firm. Miles was terminated for cause. No golden parachute, no exit interview, no farewell email with a sunset picture and a Nietzsche quote. Just a line in an internal memo, effective immediately, Miles Whitaker is no longer with the company. Full stop. No thanks for his service. I got the call later that afternoon. Blocked number, but this one I answered. Marla Hughes, yes, this is Melanie Carrington. I was with Apex Health Systems when you oversaw the 2021 audit remediation. I remembered her sharp, ethical, didn't flinch when I flagged 7 high-risk items in her own org. I read the reports this morning, she said. Your name's not mentioned, but your fingerprints are on the clean parts. I stayed quiet. Rebuilding our compliance division from the ground up, she continued. The right way, transparent, bulletproof. I want someone who doesn't flinch when the roof starts creaking. Another pause. Would you consider leading the rebuild? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I turned in my chair, looked out the window. Outside, the wind whipped a torn fast food bag into the air, spinning it in little circles like a dog chasing its own tail. I watched it dance for a moment before finally catching it on a passing car mirror. Perfect chaos, neatly caught by something solid. My voice was calm when I answered. That depends, Melanie. On what? On whether you want it clean, I said, leaning forward slightly. Or true silence. Then a quiet laugh from the other end of the line, not mocking, not corporate. Real. We'll make room for both, she said. Call ended. Offer inbound. And me? I finally exhaled. Not the sigh of someone who escaped. The breath of someone who unplugged the life support on a lie and watched it flatline. No cheers. No confetti. Just the cold clarity of knowing I didn't torch the place. I simply let the system audit itself. You're the real MVPs of the office jungle. Thanks for watching. Smash that subscribe button, or the coffee pot might just forget your next brew.